It's the week of Sunday, December 10th, and you are listening to episode 8 of DuckTalks. Thanks for listening to the show. Glad to have you. This is DuckTalks. We are a podcast about the DuckTales reboot on Disney XD. We also talk about all kinds of DuckTales related things. So we're glad to have you and glad to be here. We kind of got an odd schedule going on the last few weeks as we get ready for the holidays. Guess I should introduce myself. My name's Mitch. I'm one of your hosts. And Pirate's not with me again this week. Again, the holidays, a lot of things going on. He wasn't able to join me, but thankfully, Josh was able to schedule to be with me once again tonight, and we're going to talk a little bit about DuckTalks. That's who we are. We're not going to talk about ourselves. We're going to talk about DuckTales and DuckTales comics and a few other things that whatever we want to talk about. So, Josh, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back on the show. I'm ready for another great episode of DuckTalks, and excited to go over all the things we have today.
Yeah, man, we really appreciate you working around working your schedule around this weekend to do the episode with me. I'm really trying to keep this a weekly podcast. Sometimes that's hard. When Pirate and I decided we were going to do this, we both said we had wanted to do podcasts in the past, but having families and jobs and all that, man, it gets crazy. I don't know how some of these weekly podcasts do it, but we've done pretty good. We've missed a couple of episodes. But otherwise, we're on week 8. I think we've been recording for 10 weeks. I think we've done pretty good. And, you've been on, this is what, your third episode now?
Yeah, it's my third episode. Yeah, I totally understand the whole weekly podcasting. When I was part of the Inside Overwatch podcast, we were having the same situation as trying to make sure we do it every week and try to get new information each week for all the listeners. And it's definitely difficult, but as long as you kind of keep that pace going and keep the momentum going, it definitely helps getting that all together. But I'm definitely excited that you guys are still doing this podcast every week, and just hearing all the great reviews and the news is awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. I've spent more time at the computer working on this than I think anything else in the last few years, other than some schoolwork. But it's really cool. I enjoy doing this and communicating with everybody throughout the week. That's one of the things that really drives me to do this podcast. It's in the middle of the week when we're swapping information with other people about what's going on with the show. And, it's kind of hard to do a weekly podcast about a show that isn't airing on a weekly basis right now. So we're trying to find topics that we can talk about. Thankfully, there is still a lot going on. There's a little bit of a dry spell there before the December episode finally aired. And, there's a little bit of a dry spell ahead of us. Looks like we're going to go throughout the month of January without a new episode. It's not confirmed, but a number of sources are saying that. No DuckTales in January. So we've got some stuff planned. We've got a few things that were actually supposed to have already happened, and due to circumstances on our part, we weren't able to do them, but we're working on that, and I've got some technology advances coming on my part soon. Ordered a microphone. It's actually been delivered, I believe, but it went under the Christmas tree. So first of the year, hopefully I'll sound a little bit better and be able to do a little bit more. One thing Pirate and I have talked about doing that we both really want to do, we want to include our kids on an episode, and in order to do that, I really needed a microphone. So hopefully we get to do that soon. First of the year, might be our first one out the gate after January or into January. So, but yeah, another thing, you brought up reviews. I wanted to talk about that, so that's great. Had a little bit of a conversation with someone over Twitter. If you're into retro video games, there's a podcast for that. They've the Nintendo Pulse. There's all kinds of podcasts at Res TV, and we're thankful to be a part of that. And so you can get it that way. Another way that we're available is, of course, our direct feed. And thankfully on Amazon, they've got a really good review system set up. You've got to get a number of reviews, and I don't know what that number is. I could probably ask, um, but you've got to have so many reviews before they actually rate your podcast and start showing your rating. And I know from when I first started looking for podcasts, that rating was a big deal as to whether or not I'd try something. Um, even looking in a specific market or a specific topic, I was looking for higher reviewed podcasts. Well, we currently have a few reviews, and we're very thankful for those reviews. And but we do not yet have enough reviews to be rated. So that's our goal. Because once we get a rating, that means we'll be available for more people. More people will see us and know that we're here. So if you enjoy Duck Talks, if you enjoy our conversation, if you enjoy the show, please, and you use an Apple device, you're using iTunes to get our podcast, please go to iTunes. Please go to iTunes and find that where you can review the episode or review the show, and give us a quick review. It doesn't have to be anything too long, or whatever you want to do. And give us that review. I'm not going to ask you to give us a 5-star review. I feel like we're getting better each episode, but I don't know that I would give us. Okay, yeah, I would give us a 5-star review, but I'm going to leave that to the listeners.
Yeah, definitely go out and review the podcast. The more we get it, the more that it can get out there to other people, and you never know. There's might be people who are interested in the Ducktales podcast and don't even know about it. So this will definitely help it get out there. And also telling your friends, if you know somebody who likes Ducktales and they would be interested in a podcast, tell them about it, and then tell them to review as well. Just so that the podcast can get out there and grow and then form a bigger community with all of its members.
Yeah, because that's what we're looking to do. We enjoy that conversation throughout the week and just talking about this stuff. And I'm constantly on Twitter searching through, searching for Ducktales and looking for people who are talking about the show or asking questions and trying to answer some of those questions. So we just want to create a bigger net of community there, and just being able to, have more people to talk about this show with. So I was going to read a couple of reviews. So we've got one. We've got a couple from November. I know we asked on social media for people to give us a few reviews, and then looks like we got 3 from November. One is from MV. Well, I won't read the names. Anyway, we've got one, and it says the title is Woohoo, and it is a 5-star. And it says, awesome podcast about all the latest DuckTales news and episodes. Hosts are huge fans of the new and original shows, and have great takes on all the new content. So that was a good
Yeah,
review.
I'm not gonna lie, that one probably was mine.
That one's yours.
Yeah, I don't know why, but for some reason it didn't let me put my name on it. But I think it must be associated with one of my wife's accounts, so it's got a different name on it. But that one's definitely mine. All the reviews aren't from us, I promise. It's just that
one
one.
is.
That one's from me.
Well, the next two do appear to be from a different person, not you, but the same person, because one of them was on our personal uh, on our personal podcast. The other one was on Rest. And it says best Ducky podcast of all time, and it's from Casey. We've talked about Casey on the show a few times. He's very active on Twitter with us, and we enjoy talking with Casey about Bubba. It says, as the title explains, this podcast is just Ducky. If you love Disney Ducks, then give this podcast a listen, and don't forget to follow them on Twitter. Plus, who knows, you might be the listener of the week. And I think Casey was listener of the week about the time he did this in November. And that's something we've not gotten to do in a few weeks, is have a listener of the week. And that's just because we're trying to reserve that for people who communicate with us, who also let us know that they listen to the show. So maybe they share the show, on social media. Something like that, just so that we know that they're a listener. We've got a lot of people who retweet and communicate with us on Twitter, but uh, don't know that they all listen to the show. Maybe they just enjoy our social media feed. But he also posted something similar on Res TV's feed, so we appreciate that, Casey. And you're always our listener of the week.
Hmm.
So there's not a lot of news this week about the reboot on Disney XD. We've got we did recently have an episode, and we're going to talk about that episode. We're going to give you an opportunity to talk about that episode here in just a moment. We've had the one episode, the Impossible Summit of Mount Everest, and it was a fun episode. We said it's probably in contention for one of our favorite episodes. It's getting hard to rank them now that we're about 10 episodes in, and
Yeah.
you know, we were kind of waiting to see when we would find out about the next episode, when it would air. And man, I've looked at that calendar and that scheduling for December, and we are not getting DuckTales, not from what I've seen so far. And then there's been a couple of social media accounts who have posted from various websites and places where they've looked it up and found that Disney XD is saying the next time DuckTales will air will be in January. So that's kind of unfortunate. I hate that we're getting this long of a break.
Yeah, I hope that hopefully it's in January and not like just they meant beginning of the year, maybe like possibly February. But I'm hoping that there'll be more episodes once January hits, since we have gotten quite a few weeks of hiatus in this month, and then we had a few weeks last month in November. And so I'm hoping they'll bring it back for us and we can kind of enjoy our DuckTales again.
Yeah. I'm trying to look up right now. I know that it's coming up. I should have already had this in the notes. I know that the DuckTales DVD for the premiere is coming out this month. I believe it's next week. I'm trying to confirm that very quickly. I should have already had it. And
Oh, yeah.
December 12th. So the
December 12th.
DuckTales DVD, and that it does appear to just be the premiere episode. So it's the episode titled Woo. Um, Comes out. It's on Target's website currently for release on December 12th, and you can still pre-order it. I've pre-ordered my episode. I plan on doing a review. Of course, we know what's in the episode, and many of us already have the episode, the digital version, for free. But hoping there's a few features, or I guess maybe we'll just end up talking about the menus. I don't know what might be
Hmm.
different on the DVD, but I've already ordered it. So that's coming out for people who are interested in things that are coming out for DuckTales.
Yeah. And then we have those books coming out too pretty soon, right? They're coming out this month.
There's not a lot of not this month. Let's see. Oh, and the DVD's also listed on Amazon's website. Finally, and it's December 12th. So I'm gonna
Oh,
consider that confirmation.
okay.
And we've talked about the treasure trove, the collection of the comics. We're going to talk about the comics more. Looks like it has. We had reported last week that it had been pushed back to February. It's now showing up on Amazon again as January 23rd, and that's for the
Okay.
paperback. So hopefully that's coming out sooner. I know Pirate was kind of bummed that it keeps getting pushed back. He's not read them yet, which is why we keep holding off conversations about the comics until he's not with us.
Yeah, it's surprising they keep pushing it back because those it's supposed to have the first three well, I guess zero, and then is it the first three, like one, two, three comments in it as well?
No, I believe, and I've not seen this confirmed. I believe it's going to be the first three, so 0, 1, and 2.
Oh, so it's not gonna have three.
Yeah.
Number three.
So in 3, 4, and 5 will be a collection that's
Okay.
already put together and already listed. Um, so January is when we get our next DuckTales book, and that's the read-along storybook that comes with a CD. That's coming out January 2nd, so first of the year.
Yeah, I don't know why then they're waiting for that comic, because the number three has been out almost a month now,
Mm-hmm.
and that I mean, it's not like they're spoiling anything by releasing them all at the same time, and so it's just kind of weird. decision.
Yeah, you know, talking with Joe Caramagna is the writer, one of the writers on the DuckTales comic, and we've had a few conversations with him about when the comic's coming out, because I think it was the first issue, not zero, but issue one, was supposed to come out on a date, and then it didn't. It came out the next week. And then we found issue two listed on a date, and then it came out the week later. And so we were curious why it kept getting pushed back. And he was like, I don't think it is. I don't think it's a week late. I think they're, he didn't say this. This is my guess. Maybe they pushed up the initial release, like the issue zero, trying to get it out before the first episode or something. And then now they're adjusting to the regular schedule. But he said content's been done for a while. I mean, online you can find issue six already listed. So, I mean, they've already got this material done and ready to go. It's just not out yet. January 9th, the Cinestory comic comes out. Now, those are literally frames from the show that are put in a comic format and then given, dialogue balloons and thought balloons.
Okay.
So that's coming out in January. I think that's the only two things in January. Everything else is on into next year. Summertime. We'll have a lot of DuckTales stuff summertime.
Okay, cool.
All right. We do try to keep up with, when things are coming out, because we're all waiting on that DuckTales merch.
Yeah, we are.
Nothing at the Disney stores yet. Although Disney Crossy Roads has me excited about the possibility of some more reboot vinyl figures.
Yeah, how quickly do they turn over the vinyl figures for that game?
That I'm not sure. I've never collected those. I've seen them in the stores, so I know I knew that they made them, but we've never collected them. As a matter of fact, last week was the first time I realized they came in blind boxes. I had only seen them in collections before, so I was a little disappointed to see blind boxes.
Yeah.
Mystery Minis already have me blind boxed out. All right, so we're going to get into a more in-depth discussion of the comics. Before we do that, Josh, you got to see Impossible Summit of Mount Everest, right?
Yeah,
What'd you think about the
definitely.
latest episode?
Oh, I loved it. It was actually one of my favorites. Probably for me, it's gonna be my number one so far that's been released, and I liked it because it had a lot of good humor in it, and it had a little bit of that DuckTales mystery in it, and it just, I don't know, it just felt like it was a good episode, and I don't know, I just really enjoyed it, and it we had a lot of good, like, funny parts in it. I guess I just said that already, but
It
I
was
think
full
it
of
was
funny
hilarious
parts.
what they did with Launchpad, basically getting duped and buying everything, and then him kind of freaking out because he had that, was it cold fever? Was that what it called?
Cold
Or
fever or ice fever, something
ice
like that.
fever or something like that?
Frozen. I originally wanted to call it Frozen Fever when I was writing something about it, and I realized that's not it. That's a Frozen show.
Yeah. That's. But I thought it was really well thought out and done, and it was, I don't know, a great episode. And I think I'm gonna rank it number one for me so far this season. I think I enjoyed it that much.
Nice. Well, it's definitely high on my list. The House of Lucky Gander was one of my favorite episodes, and Pirate's right. I don't know that I was able to put my finger on it at first, but I like seeing Donald and Scrooge interact, and I think that's why House of Lucky Gander is still my favorite. But man, that might have been number two, the Impossible Summit. I really liked Scrooge in it. I'm glad we're getting more Scrooge, and we knew we were going to get a lot more Scrooge for the last half of the season. Frank Gomez has said that online. I think he said of the next 10 episodes, Scrooge is in 9 of them or something like that. So we're going to
We
get a
haven't
lot of
really
Scrooge.
seen. I'm sorry to cut you off. I said we haven't really seen a lot of Donald other than I think the first, like, episode. I think that he was in one other episode where the episode where there was that they went to that place. I forget what it was called.
Funzo's Fun Zone,
Funzo, yeah, that place. He
where the
was in
fun
that
is in the
episode,
zone.
and I think maybe one other. Was he in another? Oh yeah, the Lucky Gander. So he was
Lucky
only
Gander.
in, like, I guess, a total of 3 episodes so far
Hmm.
of the 9.
Yeah, they are. They've said, when I say they, I mean Frank and Gomez and Matt Youngberg. They've both said that with a cast this large and the amount of characters that they have, they're really trying. They worked really hard to get the right pacing and the right amount of each character, and then Disney XD kind of changed the schedule on them, and so it kind of got lopsided on a few things. And um, you know, uh, story wise, it's very minor tweaks, but the fact that we feel like we're missing some of these characters, I really think it's because the episodes are out of order.
Yeah.
Once we get our box set, or um, if we were talking, I don't know the price on the iTunes subscription anymore to the season pass, but it was $9.99 last week. So if you're just hearing this for the first time, get on your Apple device, go to iTunes, look up Ducktales, and see if you can get the latest or the season pass for $9.99. But on that, you can watch them in order and see how it was intended. Uh, to be watched. But yeah, I think that's the majority of the reason, and I think it has hurt the show because I think a lot of almost all the criticism that I've read, it's not been on the art style or the actors or anything else. It's been on the pacing of the show, the pacing of hey, we're getting too much of this or too much of that, or we're not seeing enough of this character, and hey, when's this storyline going to take place? And
Hmm.
some of that, it's you pace yourself. We didn't need Gizmo Duck in the first couple of episodes. We know he's coming. That's enough.
Yeah.
But with feeling like we're not getting enough Donald, I think his 3 episodes were supposed to be more spread out. Same
Okay.
thing with I think the Lena storyline with her and Magica. We kind of got all of that at one time, where they just we got all the introduction to that storyline. Whereas if you look at how the episodes were supposed to air, they would have been several episodes in between each of those storylines. So I think that's the biggest issue there.
But yeah, I totally agree with you. The pace is a little off, but I think I like what you said a second ago about Gizmo. That, I mean, he wasn't even introduced till halfway through the actual original show, so introducing him early like that would have been, I feel like, a little premature. And then we still haven't got Duckworth yet, and Magica, and so there's still quite a few that were kind of like big characters in the original show that I think probably should be introduced first in some way. And so I'm not too worried about like the future characters. I just want more like the main cast to get slowly introduced before we kind of move on that kind of story.
Yeah, I want from day one, the first time that I saw a promotional image for this show, the first thing that I saw that showed characters included Launchpad, and my first response was, "There's Launchpad. Hopefully, we get Darkwing," and that was my first thought about this show. But given just a little bit of time to think about it, I love Ducktales in and of itself. Love the original cartoon and love the idea of Disney rebooting it, or doing a new version. I don't want them to put Darkwing as a prominent character in the show. And that was my favorite Disney Afternoon character. That was my favorite show. I want him to have more of be a guest on the show every now and then. Maybe just a little bit of him. I want to know that he's there. I can't wait to see how they incorporate him into the show. And there's all these thoughts on how that might happen, and there's a lot of talk about that. I, I think back to one thing Tad Stone said. He said on Twitter that he's seen a lot of great ideas of how they could do it, but he thinks the way they did it is the best way. So
Okay.
that has me excited about it. I can't wait to see how they do that. Anytime Tad Stones is excited about something Darkwing related, I'm going to get behind that.
Yeah, I hope that when they introduce these characters, that the response will be so big, and people will get so excited that that might lead to possible other shows in the future like Darkwing and some of the other Disney afternoon shows. And so I'm excited to see how they're going to announce them and all the other characters, but I'm also excited to see, like, hopefully in the future this could lead to further, like, more content for everybody.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they have to be excited about what they're hearing from Funko. I mean, the mystery minis from everything we've seen have been a success. We've been searching for them online, and there are plenty of people buying them and trading them. Um, Also, with the action figures that are coming out, they're out this month. Um, you know, People are excited about those. You see it all the time on social media. People are talking about it. People are excited to when they find it. When someone, I saw someone the other day post on Twitter that they saw a Darkwing Duck action figure at a store and it blew their mind. I'm like, that's the reaction that we want to see. We want
Yeah.
this stuff to get everybody excited about more and to see what they do with it because we've been hearing for a while and it's been confirmed from Disney that they're working on their own streaming service. And one of their biggest hurdles that they've talked about, they've not really admitted it's a hurdle, that would be that would be bad business, but one of their biggest hurdles is content. And we know that the Disney channels ran for I don't have any idea how many years, but they've got a lot of content that way. And then they have they own ABC and Freeform and a few other things. So they've got that content that can all move over. But if they're going to compete with Netflix or Hulu, they need to have a lot more content. But if Disney's going to compete with Netflix or Hulu, they've got to have a lot of new content, and so a new Disney afternoon would be a great way to do that. And I was thinking about this week. There's the merger or the acquisition of part of the Fox company of Disney that we should hear in the coming week. We should hear more about that.
Hmm.
It's said that they'll be announcing it this coming week. Disney owns 30% of Hulu, and Fox owns 30% of Hulu. And Fox's
Oh.
30% of Hulu is included in this deal. So Disney will be the majority owner of Hulu streaming service
Mm.
after this deal. So does that mean that the Disney streaming service is going to be built on the Hulu platform? Will
Mm.
Hulu will they sell their part of Hulu and Disney and Fox will move out of Hulu? Um, and I think this is less likely, will there be, they're not going to compete with themselves. They're not going to put content on both.
No. Yeah, I see what you're saying, and there's a point where if they do the Fox deal, in that situation where that could be cannibalizing on their own sales, and
Mhm.
so that's probably wouldn't be the best. And I don't know how they're gonna what they're gonna do, but I can see either pulling out of Hulu or then doubling down on the content on Hulu alongside the Disney one, or I don't know. We'll see. It's
Yeah.
hard to guess what they're gonna do and judge or predict until they actually do it.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering if they purchase this and they're able to just build off of Hulu and maybe purchase the rest of the rights to it or not the rights to it, but the ownership of it. Um, you know, could the Disney streaming service be developed more quickly with this
Hmm.
purchase than them building, ground up? Because this system already exists. There's already subscribers.
Yeah,
So it would be
unless
interesting to see.
unless they have some kind of deal where you can gain access to both, which would be nice. Maybe pay like a little bit more and then you get access to both.
Both subscriptions. Yeah, that would be cool. We're getting into the era of a la carte TV. I mean, streaming is where it's going to be in the next few years. I don't know business wise how that is exactly going to work out because I don't. It's you could have a number of streaming services that you pay for each month, and I mean I was thinking about it just the past few weeks with Disney, Marvel, Star Wars leaving Netflix. I really don't have a reason to keep Netflix. If I have to choose, I'm definitely going to. I watch Hulu more right now, But anyway, that all of that to say that there is a real possibility of a new Disney afternoon, or a new stable of Disney shows. They've already got a great stable of Disney shows that that are there that they're currently putting out, and with the success of Ducktales and maybe this merchandise of the Disney afternoon, maybe we'll get more of that. I want to see a new Tailspin. I want to see a new Darkwing Duck show, and Goof Troop kind of been left out, and I never really watched Bonkers, but I know there's a lot of people that want more Bonkers.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to hopefully these types of shows in the future. I think that'd be a great addition, and I think a good um, a good Disney afternoon for this new generation. And so it's something that we can kind of share with, because our generation was with the original Disney afternoon. I think it'd be a good way to share with the current generation the love of these characters and these shows and these stories.
All right, well let's take a look at the comics for a little bit. I think you and I have talked about issues 0, 1, and 2 in the past, um, and we kind of talked a little bit more like an introduction to the comic, to the new Ducktales comic, and we talked about being excited about issues 2 and 3 because we knew that there was going to be a change in direction, um, and even the comic acknowledges that these two books are a prequel to the new show. It's a flashback to the daring adventures of Scrooge McDuck, Donald, and Della Duck. So, um, what do you think about these two comics?
I thought I actually really enjoyed number. It was so we're talking about number 2 and 3, right? Is
Right.
it? Okay. I actually really love these two comics. It introduces Della, kind of I think for the first time. We've heard them talk about her, and we've seen a picture of her in the show, but we never have got to see how she acts, her personality, her relationship with Uncle Scrooge and Donald. And in these comics, she has a very distinct personality. She actually reminds me a lot of Huey
Hmm,
in,
that's
in
interesting.
term in terms of like she's the one who is always like, oh, um, this is, and like going through the history of, oh, this is this and this is this because of this kind of a thing. So she's kind of the information person of the group. Is how I took it from the comics,
Yeah.
where she was always like when they go to one of the stories is they go to like an Aztec temple, and then another one they go to like a Viking area, and so she's like kind of been the person that has that background information of their adventure group to kind of help them make decisions as they go through in their little adventure. And I thought it was there. I don't know how much spoilers we want to go into on these comics, but I thought it was a really good group of like different types of characters for Donald, Uncle Scrooge, and Della. And I think one of some of my favorite parts of it is that every one of the little mini stories that are in the comics is Donald basically like something happened to him and he's blaming them for what happened to him. And every time they're like, it's Donald, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I think the best way for us to discuss these are to go full spoilers. Issue 2's been out for a couple of months now, and issue 3 is the latest issue, but I believe issue 4 comes out on the 20. Man, I should have dates in front of me.
I think it comes out next week, right?
It's not. So
No.
we
Oh.
we we did have a conversation with someone about that. We thought it was going to be the 13th. It was listed as the 13th somewhere, but we've since found that it is listed as the 20th, which is the week I thought it should have been on. So
Hmm.
I think we'll typically see this book released on the third week of each month, um,
Okay.
around the 20s. So it should be out on the 20th. Um, but yeah, so if you've not picked this book up yet, you might stop listening.
Mm.
But I don't think we're going to spoil the read for you. It's a lot of fun. It's more fun than we'll be able to get into. Um, but yeah, it's same format as the first issues 0 and 1, in that we get two stories with each issue. And it is really fun seeing the interactions between Della and Scrooge, more so than Donald. Like you said, Donald kind of has the same, the same thing happen to him with each story, and that he kind of gets trapped or stuck or something like that. And I think that's interesting too. But I really felt like the relationship between Della and Scrooge is the most interesting part about this, because, like you said, we haven't had much of Della. We haven't seen anything more than that painting. And even that painting had us asking a lot of questions, because she was wearing an aviator jacket and aviator goggles, just like Launchpad,
Hmm.
or classic Launchpad, because current Launchpad wears a ball cap. But we saw this, and so it leaves you wondering. And we do get confirmation in issue 3 that she is their pilot, because we see
Hmm.
her flying the plane, crashing the plane actually. And we also get the name of that plane. I thought that was interesting. It's the McDuck Sun Chaser is the name of the plane. I don't know that I've heard it in the show, but it is named in the comic.
And it's the same plane that's in the show, right? It
It
looks
is.
like it is.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how far apart these stories are from the current show. I mean, all we know is that Donald has pretty much raised the boys, but we don't know how long he's had them. You know what? I take that back. We in the premiere episode, we had those flashbacks or pictures that he was showing Glomgold's villains, and had him with the boys, and they were like babies, weren't they?
Yeah, they were little.
Okay, so I mean, the boys still could have been born at this point, though, and just been off with their mysterious father, who nobody knows who he
Hmm.
is. But yeah, we don't know how long ago, but it's the same plane. It's definitely the same plane. One thing I thought was hilarious, I've been looking into the classic comics a little bit more, and the opening of the first story, which is old Monta Plumage had a chicken. The Scrooge is the each story begins with the ending of the story, and then we find out how they got there. And so the story begins and ends with them riding, I think it's a train car, and Scrooge is talking about all the stuff that, and this is something he says a lot in the comics. He's talking about some of his adventures in the past, and they do kind of remind you of some of those titles of old Carl Barks and Don Rosa stories. But he also says that he even farmed and raised chickens. And I thought that was funny, because at one point, Carl Barks started working for Disney in around 1935, um, and gained quite a reputation very early. But less than 10 years after that, he got frustrated with some stuff and left. And he went and started his own chicken farm. And he
That's
came back to
interesting.
work for Disney a few years later. But and that ended up being a storyline he told about Scrooge. But I thought that was funny that they kind of they throw those little Easter eggs for the fans of those comics in. I think that's very cool.
Yeah, and I did notice too, like I feel like in the show, in the newer show, that he's got like Scrooge has got like a thicker accent to him than the original.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they both have a Scottish accent, but I feel like he's got more of a thicker accent in the new show, and I feel that it's reflected in the comics and some of the stuff he says. And I'm like, what did he just say? I
Yeah,
kind of have to reread what he says sometimes because he's got that accent when he talks, you know?
he definitely does, and they spell the words out exactly how you would imagine David Tennant saying it, and it
Yeah.
does. You do a double take sometimes and go, "What? What was that?" But
Hmm.
what's funny is Donald's clear as can be.
Yeah, yeah. He's the one you can't understand.
So, but yeah, so the first stories is a lot of fun. You said they go to an Aztec temple, and Donald ends up shrunk.
Hmm.
And then the next episode, I keep wanting to say episode. The next issue is Viking at My Door, and it's a really odd story, where they're adventuring because Icelandic sheep are showing up in Duckburg in freezers. And so they're trying to figure out why, and that of course leads them to Iceland, which is covered in ice, apparently in the duck universe, because it's that's not the case in our world.
Yeah.
But so they're traveling, and they end up instead of there, they end up in a desert somehow, and just a lot of misadventures. And there's something about a silver star vortex and using freezers to repower magical sheep that that
Mm-hmm.
create cold. Um,
Yeah.
it's really wacky. It's really fun. It's silly. My girls really enjoyed it. They really laughed. They're like, "What? What do you mean sheep keep them cold?"
And then they put the fridges like in the shape of Stonehenge kind of a thing.
Right? Which
And
totally explains Stonehenge.
yeah.
But one thing that I thought was kind of odd, and I mean, because Scrooge in these comics has actually been kind of lighthearted and a lot of fun. To kind of a little bit different from the Scrooge we've seen in the show, because he's a little edgier in the show. He still shows a little bit of lightheartedness every now and then, but he's a little edgier. But in this comic, they're they're trying to charge the sheep, and for unexplained reasons, all 100 sheep must be in front of all the freezers to recharge them, and there's only 99. So Scrooge pushes Donald in. So, and Donald ends up frozen in a block of ice because of this. None
Mhm.
of the sheep do, but Donald does. But that seems kind of out of character, right? I don't know. I mean, it just seems odd.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, I know. Let me just push him in.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking earlier about Donald always ends up in these strange situations in the comic, and I thought that was kind of fun because someone asked me. They said, or someone said on I saw on social media that they they kind of didn't like how Della and Scrooge just they don't pay attention to what Donald's doing, or they don't pay attention to Donald's bad fortune, and they just
Mhm.
kind of laugh it off and keep going. And I get that. I agree that it was kind of odd, but I think it's because, if you remember the old Disney cartoons with Donald, and his theme song, who has all the bad luck? No one
Mhm.
but Donald Duck. And that was always part of all of those storylines, is that his bad luck leads him to these horrible situations, and that's exactly what's happening. And I think Scrooge and Della know him well enough that they know they can't change that, and they just got to go with the flow, and that's exactly
Yeah.
what they do.
Yeah. Well, and that's how like in the episode of the Lucky Gander is like he's so unlucky that he's like hoping to break the curse of being lucky when they go to the I guess it's like what's the I'm blanking out the
Yeah,
casino. That's what
the
the word I
casino.
was looking
Yeah,
for.
he's oh sorry, he starves the luck
Uh,
vampire.
yeah, yeah, because he's so unlucky.
Yeah, and that plays out in every one of these stories. The latest issue was issue 3, and the story the cheating like Nostradogmus, and you get a lot of these play on names. Nostradogmus is of course a dog character, and is playing off of Nostradamus, and he knew the future, but in the Duck universe, Nostradamus knew the future because he had time traveling jelly beans.
Hmm. You can go back in 6 minutes in time when you eat one.
Right. And he used this to develop the best cookie recipe. And so it's a lot of silly. I mean, it's not a
Yeah,
comic that takes itself seriously, that's for sure, right?
yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and they end up having to trick Nostradogmus to let them go, and Donald ends up stuck in a cookie. And it's not a spoiler because that's how the story begins. The story begins with Donald stuck in a cookie, and then you find out why. So it
Yeah.
was a lot of fun, and seeing Della and Scrooge work together to figure out, the trap was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
And then the second story in that issue is Beware of the Phenomenal Pumpkin People. And
Yeah.
we're not going to spoil this one for you. You know, with this comic having been the last one out, it's the pumpkin people are funny,
Hmm.
and the mess Donald gets into is also funny. I thought it was um, a new side of the character because I've not really seen that Donald's lazy, but he kind of gets in trouble because he says he's trying to get out of work, and then Scrooge even makes the comment that he, tries to get out of work. So maybe that's something we'll see more of
Hmm.
in the future. Did that kind of catch you off guard?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, that's something that I would see Louis being like in the show, but I didn't see Donald being that way. But yeah, it did catch me off a little bit off guard.
Yeah, so they help the pumpkin people with their problem, and of course you see the outcome before the story starts. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was kind of surprising a couple of times, and but definitely some comics to pick up. You know, we've been talking about these comics. One thing we want to make sure we point out, um, they're available, but their availability is limited. Issue 0 and issue 1 sold out at the distribution level. You might find it at a comic book shop, but chances are you won't. You can find them online, but you're going to pay a little bit more. So that's where the treasure trove trade paperback that's coming out will be helpful. It's like $6 on Amazon right now, so you can get those 3 issues cheaper than you could buy them individually. You can get them bound together, and it's nicer. You know, it sits nicely on a bookshelf
Yeah.
versus having to buy a comic book box. But that's coming out, so you can get them that way. Or if you're into digital comics, it is on Comixology, and those issues are on sale for $2 a piece. So you can read these and have a good time with them. Issues 2 and 3, I think 3 is still regular price. 4 is about to come out, and at that point, I expect 3 to drop down to that $1.99 price. I think the regular newsstand's what, $3.99.
Yeah, I think they're 3.99.
So that's it for these 2 issues, and like I said, pick them up however you can get a hold of them. And there'll be another trade that comes out shortly that'll have the issues 2 and 3, and I believe 4. So we've got 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so 0 and 1 and 2. Anyway, however it goes, there'll be a trade. There's going to be a trade come out that'll collect these issues. We don't yet know exactly how they're divided up, but we do have issue 4 coming out in just a couple of weeks. Quick synopsis of it is: the adventures of Duckburg's most famous citizens continues. First, Scrooge and company find themselves stuck in Happy Happy Valley where everyone is a little too happy. Then can Huey, Louie, and Dewey overcome the curse of the twin samurai and maybe make a little money too? So, not sure if Scrooge and company is referring to Donald and Della, or if we're jumping to a story with Scrooge and maybe Launchpad and Mrs. Beakley, or who it may be.
We do know that Huey, Dewey, and Louie are on it in it,
Mm-hmm.
and there's 2 different covers on the front. The
Mm-hmm.
first has them with a samurai helmet kind of floating in the air, and then the variant cover is them in like a hot air balloon, but with Donald is on the other cover, the
That's
variant cover.
true. So I bet that first story includes Scrooge and Huey, Dewey, and Louie and Donald, and I think Launchpad's on that image too.
And Launchpad, yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, so we are jumping to where we've said a few times this comic's eventually going to catch up with the show and tell stories in between the episodes. So looks like we're getting there very quickly with issue 4. Um, there's a synopsis for issue 5 as well. Uncle Scrooge seeks a fountain of youth, but when he discovers it, it isn't quite what he bargained for. It's up to Donald, Huey, Dewey, and Louie to turn him back into his old self. And when
Mm.
Launchpad shockingly makes a mistake while flying, the next candidate to be Scrooge's pilot is Dewey. So sounds like a fun issue.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to getting into current timeline.
Hmm.
And we also have a synopsis for issue 6.
Oh.
And it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun because Scrooge is going to be filling in as a junior woodchuck father on a camping trip. And there's also something about Scrooge and Launchpad searching for treasure and having to play football against the Beagle Boys.
Yeah, I'm looking at the cover right now that they showed for number 6,
Hmm.
and it looks like Launchpad has kind of got the Junior Woodchuck suit on for him, but Scrooge has his normal outfit on, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So looks like I wonder if Launchpad's still going to be the troop leader and for the Junior Woodchucks.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up that cover right now because I didn't even notice, but yeah. So Launchpad, it definitely looks like Launchpad's going to have that role as the troop leader. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, cool. So some good stories coming up. I'm very glad that we're finally getting past prequel era type
Yeah.
type stories. They were fun, and they introduced us to the characters. I think I read issue 0 before I saw the premiere of the show, so it was great learning a little bit more about the characters before we got to see them on the TV. And but man, I'm looking forward to these next set of stories.
Yeah, I do. Definitely.
So that's going to do it for our conversation about the DuckTales comics. And Josh, man, thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, it definitely was fun talking about the comics and all the this past season, and I had a good time.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you on again. We really appreciate it. It's always a lot of fun to talk about DuckTales, and
Hmm.
I always enjoy talking about it with you. And keep working on that mystery mini collection. We'll probably talk about that some more sometime in the future.
Oh yeah, I'm getting there. Not all the way collected yet, but when I get my next haul in, I'll definitely let you guys know.
That's awesome. I think Pirate just finished his.
Hmm.
So, and I've got the ones that I want. I may get a few more, but it's thanks for a great episode, and thanks for everyone who's listening. We really appreciate it. Please go to iTunes and do that review, and also share the show if you're enjoying the show and you know other people who enjoy Ducktales and might want to hear us ramble for 30 minutes to an hour about Ducktales related stuff. Let them know about us. Spread the love, and we appreciate that. And let's continue the conversation. Get on Twitter, and you can find us there. We want to talk about this stuff. We're talking about it every day anyway, so we might as well talk with you about it. So you can find the show, and you know it's either me or Pirate. You never know who's posting on the show's Twitter account, but you can find us at DuckTalks. You can also find me on Twitter. My name's Mitch, but you can find me on Twitter as Infinirama616. And Josh, why don't you go ahead and you're involved in most of these conversations too.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at ccrunner524.
Yeah, so give us a follow. We'll be happy to follow you back and include you in the conversation. Before we go, just Duck Talks. We're very thankful to be part of Res TV. I can tell you again this week, Res TV has been a lot of help and it's been a lot of fun because we got started on the Discord app with Res TV, and Duck Talks now has a chat board on Res TV's Discord. So you can join us there and join the conversation that way as well. Um, and if you don't know about Res TV yet, it's a collection of podcasters who've decided to create a place for geeky content. So you can find all kinds of great podcasts there, and you can find us there. That's where you've downloaded this episode from. So check out res.tv to find many more great podcasts. And that's going to do it for this week. So until next time, we'll see you later.
All right, see you later. Sorry, can you hear my dog drinking out of the water?
I can.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
Bite
okay.
it.
Hey, dogs got to drink.
Sorry.